Hello everyone, and welcome to the Farmers Supply Association Agriculture Report. I'm Randy Klepechka, agronomist with Farmers Supply Association. Well, it's February 14th, happy Valentine's Day, and we're filming out in the field today. It's getting farming time. We're getting a few things going on. We've had burn down herbicides going out a little bit, not a lot yet. And also today, on the 14th, we've got a little wheat fertilizer going out. So today I want to talk about those two topics. In particular, we'll talk about wheat fertilization first. And we've got a really good wheat field right here. Of course, you can tell it's kind of burnt back, and that's just the winter weather. You know, we've been through a couple of events with precipitation and freezing weather. So, that's why the field has this brown tint to it. That's normal, but this field really looks good. It's tillered well. It was planted about the 10th or 15th of October. This field is being pushed a little bit for a year. We're going to play with a few things like fertility, growth regulators, insecticides, fungicides. So we're going to play with some things trying to make some better yields here, and we'll let you know how that goes later in the season. But today I just want to focus on the nitrogen fertilization part. As far as timing of nitrogen fertilization, we kind of got a rule of thumb that if the wheat is tillered really well, like this field developed real well, then you've got time to play with to get that fertilizer out there, on into further up into February. If your wheat is late and has not tillered well, then you need to get out there early. Of course, with the mild December we had this year and fall we had, well, most of our wheat has developed pretty well, so we've got a little time to play with on getting fertilization out there, but it is certainly time to be thinking about it and getting some out there in certain situations. Weather can often make the decision for you, when it's going to rain and get that, hopefully we can get the dry ground and then get rain behind the fertilization to get the fertilizer in the ground, so that can dictate it somehow. But again, that's how you base your decision. As far as rates, we like to get about 120 units of nitrogen out there. Now, if you're a farmer and you kind of know that certain fields respond to more or less fertilizer, we'll keep that in mind. This particular farmer here says this field responds to about 140 units of nitrogen. So we're going to put a little more than that normal rate out here because he knows he can get a good response from that additional 20 units. So again, 120 units total in most situations. Split that up into two applications, with the first one coming about now or within the next week or two, and the other one right around the joining stage, which is normally about the 10th or so of March. It varies according to the weather, but it'll normally be in that early to mid-March period somewhere right there. So that's the way we want to split it up. Normally two applications. Some people put three, and there's nothing wrong with that, but usually two is enough. As far as agrotane, the urease inhibitor that we put on urea, I think the warmer it is, the wetter it is, the more likely you'll get a good response from agrotane. So, if it's warm, the temperature is up in the 60s and 70s, I'd probably go ahead and put some agrotane out there. If it's cold and dry, then you can probably get by without it. I know everybody's looking to save money anywhere they can this year, so that's that rule of thumb. Sulfur, don't cut back on sulfur if you're fertilizing wheat on sandy soils. It'll tell on you. Wheat definitely needs that sulfur. The university recommendation is 20 units of sulfur in that first nitrogen application. On some of our sands around here, especially you get up west of Turkmen and some of these really sandy soils, to me, one application is not enough. I always like to see two applications of sulfur, one in each of the nitrogen applications. So, again, the university recommendation is 20 total units. Sometimes on these sands it leaches real readily, so we need more than 20, and a lot of times we're going to get 30 plus units of sulfur out there and put some in both applications, so that's very important. So that's where we are with fertilization of wheat. It's time to be thinking about it now. After that, we'll be thinking about weed control in our wheat crop, and I've had a couple of questions this morning about weed control. As you can tell, this field's kind of brown. I mean, everything's just kind of sitting here right now. We haven't kicked off new growth yet, so we've got some time to play with. Let's let these weeds get actively growing, greened up and actively growing, warm up a little bit, and then get those herbicide applications out there. So, we've got a little time to play with on that. So again, we've got, 2 or 3 weeks, however long it may be, to get these herbicide applications out there. So don't jump the gun too early on those. So that's kind of where we're at with our wheat crop right now. And next we'll talk about burn down herbicide applications. We've moved across the highway, and we're going to talk about the other thing that's been going on now, or will be going on quite a bit here in the next few weeks, and that's burn down herbicide applications. And why do we make burn down herbicide applications? Well, a couple of reasons. One, if of course, obviously you're trying to keep the winter weeds down and under control. In one situation, you're going to be stale seed bedding or no-tilling the crop, and you want the field totally clean. In the other situations, you may be going to use conventional tillage, and you just want to kind of keep the weeds knocked down so the ground will dry out in time for you to make tillage and everything. In this particular field right here, you can see this field is bedded up. Will be planted, in April probably, the soybeans. And what's going to happen out here is this guy is going to burn down, kill these weeds that are out here, and then he's going to kind of come in with tillage and refresh the beds, and then he's going to plant in it. So he still wants to go ahead, even though he's going to come back and refresh the beds, he wants to go ahead and kill these weeds out. It'll make the operation work a lot easier, keep these weeds under control. So that's kind of the situation out here. As far as herbicide options for burn down, there's always been kind of two major base herbicides. One is Roundup, one's Gramoxone. In this situation right here, we've got a lot of bluegrass, a lot of buttercup, some winter annual weeds like that. So what I've typically gone to in a situation like this would be something like a Roundup by itself, or usually I'm going to add something with it like a 2,4-D, a First Shot, or a Sharpen. So that's kind of one of those combination applications that I like to use in this situation. Of course, with Roundup situation the way it is this year, some people may want to look at options for Roundup. Roundup's still out there, but some people are looking at options for Roundup. So if you're looking for options for Roundup, kind of the next go-to would probably be Gramoxone. Gramoxone is a good burn down material. Typically in the past, I've broken it down where I go with Roundup or one of the Roundup combinations until pigweeds start coming up. And then you got to look at something like Gramoxone, because Gramoxone is just so much better on pigweeds because of resistance issues. So, that's the situations we're in. Again, Roundup or a Roundup 2,4-D Sharpen or First Shot, and we need to look at our plant backs on some of these materials like 2,4-D, or rice has a 21-day plant back, soybeans it's a 14-day plant back, I think corn's a 7-day plant back. Really, we're pretty safe with Sharpen unless you're on some extremely sandy ground, then you might have an issue with soybeans. With First Shot, we've got a 7-day plant back on soybeans, no plant back on rice, and a 14-day plant back on corn. So keep these in mind. With Gramoxone, we normally prefer not using Gramoxone by itself. With rice, we do have to use it by itself most of the time, but we like to use one of those PS2 inhibiting herbicides. We've talked about that before. That helps the Gramoxone get in the plant. We've talked before about Gramoxone. It's a great burning herbicide, but it doesn't get its way in the plant sometimes, so it may not give you the absolute best control because it's just a cosmetic burn, and sometimes it'll go ahead and kill everything, but sometimes it's just burn and it'll regrow from that. But if we put one of these PS2 inhibitors in there, for soybeans that would be metribuzin, for corn or milo it would be atrazine, for cotton it would be diuron. Again, there's not one for rice. This helps that Gramoxone get in the plant, and we get much better control. If you look at the MP44, about every weed's going to have a 1 or 2 point better rating if you put the PS2 inhibitor with it, so it's going to make it a lot better herbicide. So again, we're looking at, Roundup or a Roundup combination, or Gramoxone or a Gramoxone plus a PS2 inhibitor, and that's what we need to be looking at as far as most of our burn down situations. In addition to this would be ryegrass, which we've talked before is becoming a bigger and bigger problem that we need to be probably looking at getting some residual herbicides in the fall out to control the ryegrass, keep it from coming up. They're looking at Command, got a label last year, but they're still looking at trying to fine-tune that rate on Command, so that's going to be an option in the future. Of course, Dual, if it's going to be going into beans or corn or milo, we can put Dual out there in the fall and help control that. But once the ryegrass is up and you're looking at controlling it this time of year, you're looking at two options. One is Select, or generic Select like we sell. It's called Section 3. Up to about the time that ryegrass starts joint movement, you can use this and get pretty good control with it. Once the ryegrass gets bigger, then we're looking at probably that Gramoxone or Gramoxone plus a PS2 to work on it. And sometimes it's going to take 2 applications because of, again, the way that Gramoxone works. So that's some of your possibilities, your options right there if you have ryegrass out there. So that's kind of what we're looking at with burn down. It's good to get a residual out there, a residual herbicide in combination with that burn down. Something like a Valor is very good. Remember, our plant backed, everything but beans would be 30 days on Valor. And back to the Select or the Section 3, remember if you're going to be planting corn milo or rice, there's a 30-day plant back following that select, and it's real. We've had issues with that before, so remember that 30-day plant back if you're using select for the burn down with the ryegrass, so keep that in mind. So again, look at residuals to keep it clean after you burn it down, and remember the plant back. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're moving closer and closer to planting. March is coming up here in about 15 days from today. We're filming on February 14th, so in March we'll get some stuff planted if the weather allows. So next month when we film, it's probably going to be right there at planting season, and we look forward to that. So until then, this has been Randy Klepeczka with your Farmers Supply Association Agri Report.